Get into some Jaguars football. Rank your confidence level in Jaguars position groups. So, Taylor, do you want to start with our least confident or our most confident?
I say let's start with our most.
Most confident.
Let's
All
start
right.
positive.
I like it. We will work our way down to our least confident. So, Mia, which position group are you most confident in?
Yeah, I'm going to go with so many of the other rankings we've seen across the media landscape and say I am most confident in the Jaguars linebacker group. And that is referring to the middle linebacking contingent of Foye Oluokun, Devin Lloyd, and some variation of Chad Muma, Ventrell Miller, Caleb Johnson, whoever that third linebacker may be. I think that there's a reason that you're seeing all these national outlets give them love because we disagree with a lot of the national rankings. But that one in particular, I do agree with. And I think if you try to dispute it, you're not looking at the facts, which is Foye Oluokun has either led the league in tackles or he has been among the league leaders in tackles for the better part of the last 4 years. Coupled with Devin Lloyd, a player who I think close to home here, Jaguar fans have criticized at times the fact that he was a first-round pick, maybe hasn't performed up to expectations. But we also forget, ladies, he played with a cast for much of the middle part of last season. He probably would have had 3 more picks if not for the fact that he was largely playing with one hand. Oh, and by the way, he also missed the trip to London and missed 2 games in there. And so I would expect a healthy Devin Lloyd, who when he came into the studio and joined XL Primetime earlier this year, as well as when we saw him during the offseason program, he has bulked up. He's taken another step. The hope is that he'll get back to a similar role to what he had at Utah, where he is able to rush the passer more. He is able to also play the mic a little bit more. He can play multiple positions at that second level. And I think you're going to see that come to fruition in Ryan Nielsen's defense.
All right, so Mia's position group she's most confident in would be linebacker. What you got, Taylor?
Yeah, so for this also, when we sent it out, we just had like offensive line, defensive line too. Let me preface that because I have defensive line as the number one with now what we're expecting, Allen and Trayvon and Armstead and Roy Robertson Harris and a healthy Devon Hamilton. To me, that's not only the starters as being one of the better position groups, but the depth to me is most comfortable. Behind Foye and Devin Lloyd, I'm not crazy confident in the linebackers personally. I have the linebackers as 4th on my list. To me, it's that defensive line. And I said this, it was my hot take about a month ago that I think this defensive line has the possibility of being one of the better ones in the NFL this year.
Okay, so I have it separated. I have interior defensive line and I have edge.
Okay.
Based off of how...
Yeah, I just said D-line and O-line on mine.
Okay, so I went with edge as the position group that I'm most confident in. And I think that makes sense as far as what we saw last year and what we expect this year as far as the defensive scheme changes and the growth of Trayvon Walker. Certainly Josh Hines-Allen is a guy that we now expect him. We already talked about him being one of the top 5 pass rushers in all of the league. We expect that performance again. And I do like what we at least know about Trevis Gibson. Maybe it's because he was with the Bears. And so you certainly talked highly of him, Taylor, in his transition here. But I think also he's going to be really comfortable in this scheme. And so I'm really excited / confident in the edge group. All right, number 2, Taylor, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so since you're splitting it, I'll add that, and I'll just say edge defensive line for me because the Trayvon Josh is what I'm most confident in, but the defensive line, the interior in general, I also really like. I think that we've mentioned this a lot. Devon Hamilton, when healthy, is really, really good, and we've seen a lot from him. I personally think that Eric Armstead, he's one of the guys that I think is one of the best players on the team, even though he's new to Jacksonville, but he's just one of those guys that has the veteran leadership. I think what he's going to add into the interior is massive. And then how Roy Robertson Harris, obviously kind of all of these pieces to me fit so well. And so it goes beyond just those starters and it goes into the depth for me. So yeah, I would go edge D-line interior if we're separating those two.
Sounds good.
I'm going to do it.
Are you doing it? Is yours 1-6?
No.
Oh.
Special teams.
Okay.
Yeah, they were next on mine.
They're 4th on
You got two Pro Bowl All-Pro talents, in my opinion, in Ross Matisic, Logan Cook. Logan doesn't get nearly the recognition he deserves, and the hope is that Cam Little will join their ranks and be here for years to come, and then you have your 3 guys for the next 5 to 10 years, locked down, good to go. I understand there will be those of you out there that say, oh my God, that's so dumb. No, it's not dumb. This team has spent the better part of the last 4 years trying to find a kicker. If you can lock in that kicker just like you locked in the punter and the long snapper 4 and 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, respectively, that's a massive win for this team.
Yeah, we all have special teams high. You have them third.
Yep.
I have them fourth. But I will do what I thought you were about to do, and that is say Trevor Lawrence is the player and really position group. Quarterback is the position group, but because of mainly Trevor, that I feel most confident in. I have high expectations for him, and if for some reason he has to go out, I think Mac Jones is a better backup than C.J. Beathard is. But look, Trevor Lawrence, this is his team. He just got paid. His wife's going to have a baby this year. And I think he's a guy that has always been a guy that puts in the work. But I think when his head coach called him out and said that he needs to learn more situational football, to me that was a massive thing that Doug Peterson said. And so I think that because of the type of person that Trevor is, he wants to prove his head coach that he has done that. He has put in the work. He has studied the film. And so I think Trevor is going to have a massive year. And that leads me into, by the way, my third position group, which is going to be, I'm sure, way higher for me, than most people, which is the wide receiving core. And that's what's also going to help Trevor. I'm super excited to watch the Netflix documentary Receiver that came out yesterday because I think there's going to be some really good stuff in that. But I love the addition of Brian Thomas Jr., love Gabe Davis coming here, and certainly Christian Kirk has been here. And Devin Duvernay, another guy, and I think they have depth at that position. So to me, wide receiver is number 3. After quarterback.
Okay. So Taylor, you already gave your 3.
So yeah, my 3 was special teams.
Okay. So you've got edge, defensive line,
special teams.
Special teams. Lauren has
edge, quarterback, wide receiver.
Okay.
It's a passing league. We better score some touchdowns.
I'm going to zig once again while everyone else zags, and I'm going to go with edge at 1, or linebacker at 1, special teams at 2, tight end at 3, because not only does Luke Farrell have a great family, folks, I actually believe he's been pretty dependable, and I also happen to believe that Brenton Strange will take a big leap in year 2 because, look, they invested a second-round pick in him. He was a raw ball of clay coming out of Penn State, like so many Penn State tight ends have been outside of Mike Gesicki over the better part of the last decade, and it's on this coaching staff. Richard Angulo was able to take Evan Ingram's play to another level over the course of the past 2 years. You can say it's because of the availability of Evan Ingram compared to other receivers. Sure, great. No, the reality is he's become a better blocker. He's been able to do more than he did with the New York Giants. He barely drops the ball. And I think Brenton Strange will factor in as the Jaguars do move to playing more 12, more 13 heavy personnel in 2024.
Interesting. All right. So my number 4 is special teams.
Oh. Okay.
Your number 4?
My number 4 is Trevor Lawrence. And the quarterback, the reason I didn't have him and the next is because I think Trevor alone is great. I don't love Mac Jones. I've been vocal about that. I do not personally think Mac Jones is any better. I don't like his personality with some other things that happened of how he kind of acted this last season. So I'm not the biggest fan of Mac Jones, but because of Trevor Lawrence, I had to put him a little higher. So he's 4 on mine. The quarterback room's 4 on mine.
All right, Mia, 4.
At number 4, I put the safeties. I am higher on the safety room than evidently most national writers. But by the way, that coaches survey we've been alluding to from ESPN did have Andre Sisco as an honorable mention this morning. I believe Andre Sisco in a contract year will perform at a Pro Bowl, if not all pro level. I also like Antonio Johnson. I think he'll make a big leap in year 2 after seeing some spot duty in year 1. And I think what we're burying the lead on, ladies, is I would argue this is the deepest position room on the entire roster. You have gotten to a point where guys like Tremaine Edmonds and Trey Flowers played meaningful minutes for Ryan Nielsen up in Atlanta. Tremaine Edmonds was a starter against the Jaguars in Week 18 for the Tennessee Titans. Those guys are camp bodies now. The 2020 roster, they're making the team, no questions asked. A guy like Josh Pryor coming out of Ohio State as an undrafted free agent rookie would have made the team in 2020, no questions asked. Not in this day and age. That is as loaded a room as you're going to get between the fact that you have 2 stalwarts on your special teams unit in Dewey Wingard and Daniel Thomas, not to mention those 2 guys starting. Oh, and by the way, Darnell Savage, if only in name, is also a part of that room. And so for me, that is the 4th room I'm most confident. Yeah, most confident in.
All right, Taylor, who do you have at number 5?
5, I have linebackers. Mia had them very high. I love Foye Oluokun. I think he is clearly one of the best linebackers in the league and isn't talked about enough nationally or by other people when you are talking about guys that lead your team in general, but also lead in tackles every single year over and over again. I like Devin Lloyd. I think we're going to see another step out of Devin Lloyd. Chad Muma, I think there's just a lot of questions, so that's why I had linebackers a little lower than Mia did. But I think at the end of the season, we could be talking differently if Devin Lloyd does take the leap that I think we do, and Chad Muma or whatever they end up doing with the Sam linebacker finds their place and it ends up performing well.
Mia, who you got at number 5?
Edge at 5.
Okay. That's kind of low.
Yeah, well, it's because what do they have? Like here's the thing. Like you've got Josh Hines Allen. You've got Trayvon Walker. I think Travis Gibson will play very well on a 1-year deal. I'm not really sure where we want to classify Eric Armstead. He'll probably rotate to that edge as well.
I have him in interior defensive line.
Right, but that and then what? And I think for me, that's where I agree that maybe you could group the two together, because I do think in this scheme with Ryan Nielsen at the helm, you will see guys rotating all along the defensive front, and I think that's a positive development for a franchise that has seen those two bookends in Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker having to play 85+% of the snaps. I just don't think it's sustainable.
Yeah.
And while Travis Gibson will be a capable third rusher, and by the way, maybe you move Yasir Abdul out there as your fastball. Mm-hmm. Eric Armstead rotates outside. Roy Robertson-Harris rotates outside. Okay. I just have questions about the depth beyond those top two. But again, if we're lumping them together and everything,
that's why I kind of put D-line at first.
And if everything I just said comes to fruition, then that changes a question mark that last year plagued the Jaguars all year long.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you my 5 and 6, because since we've already talked about both of them, I have interior defensive line at this point, number 5, and we're going again most confident to least confident as far as Jaguars positions groups are concerned, and then linebacker 6. The reason for those two being a little bit lower, Devon Hamilton, because of the illness last year, we have to see him at training camp and we have to see him healthy this year. But I'm excited about the other pieces, like we've talked about, Roy Robertson-Harris and the addition of Eric Armstead. And then linebacker, it's for the same reason you mentioned, Taylor. Foye Oluokun, if it was off middle linebacker alone, if that was a separate category, then this would have been number one.
Yeah.
But because there are guys that are going to be expected to step up and then we just haven't seen them play in this scheme, that's the only reason I'm not as confident in linebacker. All right, now we're getting to the position groups where we're a little bit less confident.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that. I have interior defensive line at 6. Okay. I don't think it's that I'm not confident. I think it's, again, kind of just a question of how will they be used? How healthy will they be? I believe Devon Hamilton is healthy. Spoke to him in May. Sounds healthy.
But the other two were working off to the side, and Roy and Eric when we saw at OTAs.
Correct. And you also have 2 rookies in Mason Smith and Jordan Jefferson. Are you incorporating them somehow? What is the plan there? Who else provides depth on the interior?
Yeah, I have for 6, I have wide receivers. I think that for me, Kirk and Gabe Davis, I've been very vocal about. I love them. Brian Thomas Jr., I think we are going to see something really good at, but being a rookie and not really knowing how quickly he'll be implemented and how quickly he'll be on pace, because a lot of people I have talked to said that they think Brian Thomas Jr. will take a little bit more time to get adjusted to the NFL. And then beyond those 3, for me, it's a lot of question marks. We're talking about, a Parker Washington of you definitely want to see a lot more from him this season. Tim Jones, who's pretty much a special teams guy, possibly making your roster on the wide receiver rank. So to me, I have them that middle of the pack, but because of the top 3 for me, I put them right in the middle.
We'll recap the top 6 so far. There are 11 position groups according to how we have denoted it. Taylor, give me your 1 through 6 most confident so far.
Okay, so my 1 through 6 most confident: edge, defensive line, special teams, quarterback, linebacker, wide receiver.
Mia?
Linebacker, special teams, tight ends, safety, edge, interior defensive line.
All right, I have edge, quarterback, wide receiver, special teams, interior defensive line, and linebacker. So now 7 through 11. So again, we are going towards our least confident. So at the 7 hole, who you got, Mia?
Wide receiver. There's too many of them. 6 of them have to hit. End scene.
Taylor?
7, I have corners. Tyson Campbell, I think obviously we talk about if he is what he is pre-injury, he's one of the better corners in the league. I think there are questions behind that, and I've mentioned that there's a big shoes to fill, in my opinion, with the loss of Darius Williams. But what we've heard of what Darby can be and the expectations of everybody we've talked to of where Jarian Jones could fit in. Also, possibly if we see Savage being able to play that position too. They're not towards the top of my list, but I do have confidence that they could at least solidify a starting foundation, especially if Tyson plays how we think he can play.
Yeah, certainly a highly competitive room, that's for sure. All right, at number 7, I've got running back, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Dearness Johnson, Keelan Robinson. Obviously, high confidence in Travis Etienne. I still have high confidence in Tank Bigsby. I think this is going to be a bounce-back season for him. No one next offseason is going to be talking about whether or not he's even going to get the ball. I do think he's going to have learned from his mistakes. I think he's got a great attitude. He understands that the rookie learning curve is difficult. And yeah, I think we're going to see him score some touchdowns this season.
I have them at 8 for running backs because I've had this conversation now with multiple people, both in and outside of the organization. You could make the argument Travis Etienne is the more electric player and Tank Bigsby is actually the better running back. You could also make the argument that Travis Etienne is the best football player on the roster right now. And that's in terms of explosive capability, in terms of sheer athleticism, and that is coming off of a Liz Frank injury in 2021. I still believe that. I believe that with a revamped running game, we can see that full potential, and he will perform much better than the somewhere between 8 and 12 ranking that pretty much he's been getting across the board.
Yeah, I have 8 tight ends. I think Evan Ingram, to the point, excuse me, of our guest earlier when we were talking about fantasy football, and I mentioned this maybe it might have been when you were out, Lauren, but when we were talking about Evan Ingram and our expectations of what he was going to do this season, I do think that burst, and when you look at his receptions and everything that happened, they drastically inclined when Christian Kirk went out. I still think he is a top tight end, like he said, a top 8-9 tight end in the league, but beyond that, a lot of question marks for me. I have at this point in time, have not a ton of confidence in Strange or Farrell whatsoever. I think they're kind of just there. And so to me, it's a whole lot of Evan Ingram, and that's about it. But I still think, to me, they're at that 8 spot. They're not at the bottom.
Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros joined us earlier.
Yes.
Is who Taylor was talking about. If you missed that, it was in the 12 o'clock hour. So for all you people who love fantasy football, definitely check that out if you missed it. At number 8, I've got safeties, and it's mainly because I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like with Antonio Johnson there, because I thought Rayshon Jenkins had a phenomenal season last year and really the last 2 seasons. And so I do expect there to be a little bit of a drop off, and we haven't seen Antonio Johnson play safety to this point. I do have high confidence in Andre Sisco, and then the guys behind him certainly are capable backups. But because there's an unknown there, that's where I've got the safeties at 8. Number 9.
Quarterback.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you forgot.
Quarter.
Oh.
Yeah, you forgot. I didn't put him in there. Because mostly...
Someone was yelling at me for having them at 4.
Right. Mostly so that when things go awry and you all start yelling at Trevor or yelling at the quarterback room, Mike McCoy's position group as a whole, I could say it's okay, I had them at 9. And that's not to say that there isn't confidence there in me. I just think that the buck stops with the quarterback, and this is a prove it to what have you done for what have you done for me lately league. And hey, Doug lit a fire under Trevor, so I'm going to do the same.
All right, that's
wild.
Surprising. Yeah. All right, your
someone
9th
literally
group.
was just yelling at me on the text line.
Oh, I was going to say I didn't yell
not
at you.
Somebody on the text line.
They can yell at me now. It's fine.
That's true. Her name is Mia
We're used to
O'Brien.
getting yelled at. My number 9 is running backs. I love Travis Etienne. Again, I think Tank Bigsby has the chance to really step it up this season. We talked about the fumble issue, but Etienne had the same fumble issue in his not rookie, but kind of rookie season. And so I do expect all of those things. I do think it's something they're going to work on heavily this offseason too. Hold on to the ball. And that's for everybody. We're going to see Trevor being forced to all those weird drills they do with trying to get the ball out of their hands. Everybody hold on to the ball. Don't fumble it. But yeah, so running backs at 9 for me.
All right, 9, I have cornerbacks, and it's mainly because Tyson Campbell had the injury history last season, certainly issues with the hamstring injury, and then a lot of unknown there as well. Not that I don't think it's a competitive group, like I said, it's just we don't know exactly who's going to be starting, and so therefore I can't have a lot of confidence until I see how it plays out. This group a year from now may be way higher on my list. 10th, I've got tight ends, mainly because, to Taylor's point, you've got Evan Ingram, and then you've got a couple guys where I'm just not 100% sure. Farrell's a great blocker, but can Strange get to the point where if something were to happen to Evan Ingram, this team still runs seamlessly, the offense? That I'm not sure about. Your 10th.
I guess
10th?
We all have 10 the same. Oh, not 10 the same.
I
Our
think
last
we all
one
have.
the same.
That's what I would have. I told you
Actually,
that
I'm going to take the offensive line at 10 because I want to be different, and because look, I mean that's the elephant in the room and the obvious one to put 11. But if we want to base it on players returning and continuity, you could make the argument there's no other room that has quite the familiarity with one another as the offensive line. This is largely the same crew.
Probably just the tight ends.
That came together. Yeah, right. That's the exception. Yeah. And obviously it's a smaller group, so the percentage, if we want to play numbers, there is a little bit different. But I would argue that given that almost all of this room outside of last year's first-round pick in Anton Harrison and Mitch Morse added as the starting center and then Ezra Cleveland traded for last year, the rest of this group, the core of this group, even the guys on the practice squad in the offensive line room have all been together for 2+ years now. And look, you can blame the injuries. You can blame perhaps the fact that there really wasn't a true run game like persona. Like there wasn't an identity to the run game. I don't think they ever actually like sat down and like formulated it. And I believe they have. Again, Press Taylor said they took it down to the studs, and this is going to be a different look, especially in that operation. And so, yeah, I'm going to be different and put them 10th.
All right, so who do you have as the last group then?
I have corners just because, again, Tyson coming off of injury, and it's arguably the youngest position group on the team. And that's not to say it can't end up being a strength when all is said and done. That's not to say that I'm not confident in them. I am confident in this group, probably more so than most people in the building. But it just so happens they were the last one standing, and the obvious of, hey, can Tyson bounce back, and can these young guys answer the questions of the departure of Darius Williams and the other holes that existed on this roster? There's just more questions there.
Yeah, my 10 is safety, and pretty much to what you were saying, Lauren. I love Andre Sisco, but beyond that, I think there's just a bunch of question marks. So it's another group to where they could surprise us, and Antonio Johnson does come out and play really, really well, and savage in his moments when he's playing safety. We see that. But I just think, to me, it's Andre Sisco on an island right now, and we'll see beyond that.
And then offensive line, Taylor and I both have 11th. I predicted that all three of us would have had offensive line as last.
I honestly thought you guys would have them a little higher.
Not because, for me, what they showed us last season. And obviously you expect better with Mitch Morse now, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. The offensive line knows I got their back. This is about defending the other position groups and creating chaos in this exercise.
Yeah, for me, I just think that, number one, you got to be on the football field. So until I can see you on the football field for a full season, I can't evaluate of what you can be for a full season. So a lot of it is just that, not being we talked about how many different players played on the offensive line and how many people had to move around. Walker Little's played pretty much everywhere because nobody can stay healthy. So until they can prove to me that they can do that, they're not going to be at the top of my list.